Hi everyone, thank you for having me this afternoon. I'm here today to talk to you about sharks. But as I wrote this talk, I came to realise that this was more a story of fear, realising fear and understanding it. I'd like you all to imagine something. Imagine that tomorrow morning, you and I are going to go swimming with sharks. I'll pick you up at the front of your house at 6 a.m, and by 8 o'clock in the morning, you and I will be in the water with 5 or 6 of these guys. Now, I want you to really imagine that. Imagine yourself on the boat. Imagine the anticipation you feel as you roll off the boat into the shark's domain. How does that make you feel? With a show of hands, could everyone who feels a little bit afraid by that concept put your hand up? Okay, so that's about 98% of the room. And this is good. Fear is important. It means that we don't become complacent. I fear sharks, and that may be a surprise to some of you. But every single time I get in the water, I experience fear. And no matter how many times I dive with sharks, I experience this same level of fear. However, my understanding and my attitude towards that changes. In fact, this fear is not unlike being asked to give a TEDx talk. It's truly quite frightening, but it's also very exciting. And no matter how much I do public speaking, I still get afraid when I take those first steps up onto the stage. But my understanding and my attitude towards that fear changes. With regards to sharks, the issue with this fear comes when we let it drive management decisions. That means that we see the logical, sort of science-driven approaches to management of sharks be pushed aside for more emotional knee-jerk reactions. And in fact, even some of today's most forefront shark conservationists feared these animals once upon a time. Here, just right off our coast, in the 60s and 70s, the grey nurse sharks were considered the man-eaters. Many shark hunters went out and tried to kill these animals, and they did this quite successfully. So much so that we saw a dramatic decline in their population. However, with the more time these shark hunters spent in the water with these animals, they grew to realise that they weren't quite the malicious predators they were made out to be. In fact, they found it quite difficult to get up close to them, close enough in order to kill them, or, they found that these sharks were quite intimidated by their presence. With this knowledge, these shark hunters turned into conservationists and paved the way for the rest of us. Unfortunately, the East Coast population of grey nurse sharks is still listed as critically endangered today. In fact, my story even begins with fear. When I was just 10 years old, I was out surfing with my dad. We were surfing at a protected beach where a lot of parents took their young children. And remember, I'm from the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, so we take shark sightings pretty seriously, because usually they're not your sort of nice little sharks. We were out surfing and someone yelled out, "Shark!" And we all were like, okay, yep, that's great. Our parents sort of grabbed us very calmly and got us out of the water. And I remember standing on the shoreline with a bunch of other people, staring out to sea, all anxiously waiting to capture a glimpse of this animal. A couple of minutes later, a pod of dolphins surfaces. Everyone grabs their boards and just runs back out to the surf. And I was the last one left standing there, and I remember being pretty genuinely confused. My 10-year-old mind couldn't quite capture the difference between these animals. What made one so unbelievably terrifying that we got out of the water at just the mere mention of its name, and another so endearing that we run in towards it? That afternoon, I went home and I raided my dad's fishing book collection. And it was at this point that my unhealthy, as my mum calls it, obsession with sharks began. As I grew older, I obsessed over how I could get other people to question this fear and want to explore it. I happened upon, or just by chance, I happened to meet 4 other like-minded individuals, and an independent documentary series was born. Over 6 episodes, we set ourselves the task of getting you, the audience, to rethink the shark as you know it. One way of achieving this was to gather topical research and deliver it to the audience in an interesting yet simple black and white animation. These animations covered issues that a lot of sharks around Australia face, such as shark control programs, the sustainability of sharks as food, Australia's role in the shark fin trade, and of course we looked at the issues surrounding the Jaws generation. We also explored the food safety issues associated with consuming shark meat with high levels of methylmercury. We then took these animations to the streets. We posed questions to the public to gauge their responses on a variety of these issues. And their answers to those helped us shape our content to meet the current views and fears towards sharks. Undoubtedly, though, the most important element of a shark documentary is getting in the water with sharks. So, in order to achieve our task, we spent as much time as possible underwater with these animals. It's quite funny, our main aim here was to put someone in the same frame with a shark, or better yet, multiple sharks. It's quite funny, and I probably shouldn't have to say it, but many people who watch nature documentaries and see amazing footage of sharks don't actually make the connection that there was somebody in the water filming that animal, and that somebody made it out of the water with all limbs attached, and probably went back the next day and the next and the next to continue that. And that happens all around the world every single day. We also wanted to explore the diversity of sharks, not just the big guys that make all the headlines. And over 3 years, every single spare moment myself and the team had in between work and study was spent on this. Our lives became pretty overtaken by camera angles, voiceover content, animation development, sound production, and of course, learning the art of trying to tell a good story. These are all things that as a scientist, I didn't think were that important. But as I went about doing them, it turns out that they're mediums that are vital to strategic communication. Luckily, between the 5 team members, we had just the right mix of skill, scientific knowledge, attitude, drive, and determination to take an idea like this and package it into our greatest weapon against fear, knowledge. So far, this series has reached around 1 million people. And if we've done our jobs correctly, that's 1 million people who now possess the knowledge to make up their own minds about sharks. I'd like to conclude with my favourite quote from sociobiologist E.O. Wilson. To me, this quote perfectly encompasses my passion and my fear for sharks. We're not just afraid of predators, we're transfixed by them, prone to weave stories and fables and chatter endlessly about them, because fascination creates preparedness, and preparedness, survival. In a deeply tribal sense, we love our monsters. Thank you.